What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? I'm so excited to be back. I hope that everybody can hear me well. Oop, here we go with this microphone, per usual. But really excited to be on here, y'all, and really kind of to get back to some of the central conversation around what the F is happening in America. Okay, so once I get this mic situated, I think we should be good to start our conversation. But for those coming in, like, how are you feeling since the last time we talked? What is going on with all of you? We have so much to get into, so I'm excited to dive in. I'm excited to dive in. Um, so, y'all, a lot has happened. Obviously, we are in a government shutdown, which is crazy. Um, Aside from that, we just had local elections that, of course, have sparked some momentum, right? Has sparked some momentum, and that's something that, of course, we want to continue to follow and keep up with, and all the things. Um, and kind of also just diving into like, what does that mean for young people? What does it mean for Americans everywhere? Um, how are they feeling about what's happening, right? Like what's happening right now. So let's just take a deep dive. We'll take a deep dive and honestly just don't even know where to start, but we've got to start somewhere. So the federal government, right? Um, the federal government. Let's talk about it. So one thing we do know is the federal government does indeed operate on a annual budget, right? And Congress has to pass, and the president must sign a set of, I believe it's 12 appropriation bills, before the fiscal year ends. So that's where we are right now. The fiscal year ended on September 30th, to fund the various agencies and programs. And essentially, if Congress fails to pass either the full appropriation bills or even, I think it's short term stopgap measures, um, to keep the government funded, agencies that rely on those annual appropriations must shut down or take a significant scale back, right? And so, in the current situation, what has happened is the government entered a shutdown on October 1st, 2025, after Congress failed to reach an agreement and the funding has stopped. It has lapsed, right? So, what does that mean, y'all? Like going in, um, to thinking about like Congress, right? A lot of Democrats, they're raising concerns that Republican led funding proposals just don't, they're not significantly or efficiently, um, they're not protecting like some of the key programs, right? For example, we keep hearing about the healthcare tax, Medicaid protections, and how it's putting these pressures on vulnerable populations, older people, people of color, single parents, right? Um, and what we're seeing is that majority of Americans, honestly, they are blaming the conservative side, um, and or the president, more specifically, for the shutdown. Um, so yeah, it's getting crazy out here, and it's sad because there are some key programs that are really being affected. What we're seeing right now is there are actually a lot of people, that are losing their SNAP benefits, and for those that don't know, that is how many people get their food and how they eat from month to month. Um, and it's interesting because I'm seeing a lot of people who voted in the opposition that are now struggling to find their next meal, right? And so I think that brings up a bigger conversation of really voting for community. And that's something that you guys will often hear me talk about is sometimes it's so easy to think about, right? Like yourself and what impacts yourself or what does not impact you, right? But it is so important that we vote for community at large because things like this can happen. Things like this can happen. They said it would happen, and it is indeed happening, right? Um, and so I do think that Democrats, are really using this shutdown as a messaging moment, right? Arguing that, a responsible government must fund services that people rely on, like food, healthcare, basic needs, right? And refusing, um, the clean funding, um, is kind of political. Uh, thought process, right? So why this matters? Why does this matter? Well, for everyday Americans, some federal operations are stopped. They are delayed. We're seeing that in many different ways, but of course, one of the main headlines is seeing that what's on in the airports, right? People are not showing up to work, and quite frankly, I don't blame them. I'm not getting paid. I'm furloughed. Why am I showing up to work? And it's like not even one of those things where people are just not showing up because of that alone, but like it's the fact that they can't afford childcare, right? They can't afford the gas to get to work and get back, right? And so these are real issues that people are plagued with, and Congress needs to make a decision. Congress needs to make a dang on decision. Okay. Um Now I think for Democrats, this really is a unique opportunity, right? To kind of frame the narrative around whose side is working on families, kids, healthcare, and stability, right? So we really do have an opportunity to kind of take this moment and showcase why that is so important and why we focus on it so much, right? And so the Washington drama, it really does have a real impact on people, on their jobs, um, and their services, and just from, I guess, from my point of view, holding the line in on programs protections isn't just like foot dragging; it's policy and it's values um, that that are on full display, right, or their lack thereof. So that's the government shutdown in a nutshell. It's crazy. I have several friends that have been furloughed for weeks at this point. We have It's crazy. Like people have been out of work for a few weeks now. Um, and I was hoping they were going to be able to come to a resolve. I think it was like that second week in October, but before people were really going to have to like stop working, or deal with the furlough. But baby, it's November 7th, and we really do need to find a resolution. We do. Um, so the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about this week was exciting. Like this was a very exciting week. Um, I will say this. This time last year, on November 4th, last year, I was tore up, as many of you were. Many Americans, specifically many black women, like I said, like you all know, 92% of us showed up in alarming numbers to vote, right? In favor of Kamala Harris, right? And she warned us about what could happen. And I think we're seeing it in real time, right? Like with everything that I just mentioned related to the shutdown, with everything that I mentioned, or that you guys know about these ICE raids and all of these things that are happening that are impacting people in real time detrimentally, um, they're happening. And that is what I felt like I was mourning on November 4th last year. And I think so many people were. And so for it to be 365 days later and to be at an election day, and as an organizer, we preach local elections, really getting into local government, being civically engaged in that space because what happens on the local level is honestly what impacts your day to day, probably more so than what's happening in Congress. Now, granted, we are seeing that on a different scale this year, but it's so important. And, in areas like Georgia, for example, where I'm from, there's public service commissioner races that are going on that really are impacting people's every day. Like the power bills are crazy. The Georgia power bills are insane. Um, and those are real issues that people are navigating on the local level, right? And so it was actually very beautiful to see so many people show up in huge numbers, right? We saw in California they were able to pass Prop 50. We saw people really show up. We saw a big amount of like young politicians that are actually being elected into office. We saw the win in New York with Mom Donnie. It's just it feels great. It feels great. Um, and I really want us to like go on this momentum, right? And so we saw like, in Detroit, which I've been loving, Mayor Sheffield. The Democrat, who was elected as the first woman mayor by a very commanding margin of 77% to 23%. Um, a few days ago, and she, I believe, the number is 374 years and 347 years, I think it was, of Detroit's history. There have all been male mayors, and she is the first woman, and she's a black woman. So we love to see it. Here in North Carolina, where I am, elections, Democrats really did dominate, and many races in suburban, city races in Wake County. The GOP only won one of 22 endorsed seats. So that's crazy. Like, that is just a big margin, and it makes me a little bit more hopeful of North Carolina turning blue, especially in 2026 during the midterms and again in 2028. Um, so yeah, we also saw North Carolina Democrats won majorities in city councils. We flipped longstanding seats, and had strong turnout. And so it's really an exciting time. In Georgia, Democrats won 2 seats of the state public service commission that I was just talking about, which is huge. Um, a huge win and the first such statewide office for Georgia Democrats in about 2 decades. So big things happening. Big things happening. Why this matters, right? Again, this shows momentum, especially in places where Democrats have not or may not have been expected to win. Some of these suburban shifts are especially notable, and just kind of giving the idea of like the ability to turn blue, right? We're more purple than we think. Local wins, kind of building the bench, featured candidates, organizers, infrastructure. I'm seeing people realize that not only can they get involved in their, you know, local elections, but they can run. Like, you can run for office. I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Sam Foster of Marietta. Y'all, he lost by 87 votes. 87 votes. And if y'all know Marietta, Georgia, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So I'm excited to see what his future looks like. He almost got married somewhere, so I was happy to see it. Um, yeah. So, these aren't just throwaway elections, right? Local offices really do matter for policy and for building the network that will turn into state and national wins. And so, using like Detroit wins and North Carolina suburban turning points, what's happening in Georgia, these are concrete examples, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'd love to know, like, how are you guys feeling about the election? Like, the elections were amazing. Now, my hope and prayer is that people really understand um, the importance of this, right? So I'm gonna be honest. I think people went to the polls pissed off. Like, people went to those polls and got in the booth and did what they had to do and dropped some bars because they are mad, as they should be. Like, the people that have been elected to work for the people are working against the people and not in the best interest of the people. And so, people went there mad and ready to shake some stuff up, and things have been shaken. But we cannot stop here, right? Midterms are coming in 2026 and they are looming, right? And so seats that are at stake, there's US Senate races in several states, governorship races, state legislatures, Democrats. They have to build momentum now. We have to keep this momentum. We have to keep going now. It can't stop here. People can't be mad and think things are going to change. And because things may change a little bit, that they don't get back in the booth in 2026. No, we need people to come with the same energy. Um, so what do we do now, right? What are some things that you can do in this moment? Organize locally, town halls, community outreach, um, getting with local organizers that are doing this work on the ground, investing in voter registration and getting out the vote, building candidate pipelines. Like, it's time. The time is now, especially in those lesser represented areas. Um, and we just want to elevate like those issues, right, that resonate with people, like the cost of living, healthcare, um, infrastructure, climate, education, while reminding people that democracy is not automatic. We're not just granted democracy. We're not just handed democracy. Democracy Wins require action. Wins require action. And so I just want us to remember to use this current momentum and these local wins as bridge points. Okay. We're not just celebrating wins, we are building. Again, we are not just celebrating wins, we are building. We are building a pipeline, we are building momentum, and we have to keep the same energy going into 2026 for those midterm elections. It is imperative that we build the capacity now and the education now, and that we inform people now, and that we get people active and engaged in this process, this political process now. Because in 2026, we have to do it just like we did it this time. We have to get out, we have to understand the importance and the urgency around it, and we have to flip those Senate and House seats. Because if we can flip those seats, the president can't do nothing. And we might just be able to do it impeached, you know? So but none of that can happen if we stop now. We can't allow one win or one election cycle where things went great to kind of carry us, right? Like I said, wins require action. And so we have to be building intentionally over this next 365 days. And so the question that I want to leave with all of you before we close is, what's one thing that you'll commit to between now and November 4th, 2026, to kind of help convert this momentum into real wins? What are you going to do? What's going to be your action? And I know every single person is not an organizer, community organizer, and everybody's not a politician, but I will say this: everybody should be doing politics because, like they say, you don't do politics. Politics will indeed do you. So, what is going to be your contribution to ensure that we continue on this upward trajectory over the next 365 days? All right. Well, that's it. You guys make sure to stay tuned. Also, tune into my podcast, the Black Emotion Podcast, streaming here on Rise Free Media. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on this series of What the F is Happening.